Hey everyone, TimaeuSS here, and welcome to another NIKKE video. So this is going to be a bit of a lengthy one. I want to take the time to provide an unbiased take on RedHood as much as I can with regards to whether or not she is worth the tickets, the pulls, and the exchange for you guys from an early, free-to-play, mid-game, and late-game perspective. So we'll take a deep dive into where you are in the game and how you define yourself as a player and whether or not RedHood is the right for you, okay? Now, first of all, this is pre-RedHood changes. This is, of course, based on the fact that the developers are looking into RedHood and potentially we may or may not get a rebalance or quote-unquote buff for RedHood. Because if you saw my previous videos, RedHood is a bit different than the ones that we saw on the JP livestream, and the JP livestream one is a lot stronger. So who knows if we'll get adjusted or not. So this take is currently on the live version of RedHood we have at anniversary launch before any changes are made. Okay, so first of all, I think the easiest way to take a look at this is talk about how much I have invested in RedHood and how I've tested her, because you're going to see loads of screenshots. Okay, RedHood performing above, below certain characters, and I've even seen RedHood compared to R rank units, R rarity, the mass production ones. So let me just tell you, all of the screenshots, just take it with a grain of salt, because right now we only have the Union shooting range, not even Union raid, and then the special interceptions that we can do, right? And of course, they're not really the optimal testing facilities available to us, because we don't have Union raid and we don't have a solo raid at the moment. But even once these game modes are released, certain bosses, certain fights will skew RedHood's results, but that's also partially why RedHood will be useful on certain counters. So just make sure that you don't just take a look at the screenshot and just say, wow, this is RedHood, because honestly, a screenshot doesn't mean much. You can have RedHood doing 2 times Modernia's damage, or you can have RedHood doing half of Modernia's damage, so it's not very clear. Okay, and another thing is my RedHood is 10-10-10, so quite invested and fully overloaded gear with decentish substats. I haven't rerolled all of them, but they at least have attack, charge damage, charge speed, attack, and ammo, speed, charge speed, and attack, and even more charge speed. So it's decently invested. It's not the ultimate I'm done with RedHood's overload gear kind of invested, but still very, very decent. MLB, so maximum break 3 stars, and at bond level 40 versus some of the other units I will be comparing to. My Modernia Core 7 fully overloaded gear with the optimal substats like max ammo, attack, crit rate. Well, that one I need to reroll, max ammo, and elemental damage. And units like my Alice, who is also, charge speed, max ammo. I've got 2 or 3, and then charge speed on top of that. So meeting the threshold and meeting the max ammo requirement, and of course Scarlet as well with overload gear such as crit, max ammo, attack. So they're all decently well invested. Okay, similar stats, so it's not an super uneven level playing field. Okay, and also, one thing I need to clarify, because I feel like people often overlook, when you compare it to Alice, Alice is undoubtedly the highest ceiling in terms of DPS right now, okay? Followed by closely by Modernia, and of course surpassed by Modernia in some cases, but you will not reach that level of Alice damage unless you have fully overloaded your Alice with the proper substat, which means you have your charge speed, meaning the threshold for quick scope, you have your ammo capacity, and you have either attack percentage or elemental advantage. Okay, it needs to be properly overloaded in a good teammate kind of setting to do the insane Alice damage that we come to expect at the top of, let's say, Union raid or solo raid. Okay, and for those of you that don't know what a gaming share or macro is, and you're not good with the manual Alice, you will not expect that type of damage output. So I'll tell you right now that for 90% of you, okay, that doesn't include 90% of, let's say, the Discord or the Reddit people, is the 90% of the general population, you will not achieve optimized Alice. That's just how it is. So it doesn't really factor in the comparison. And if you are just kind of echoing what people are saying based off Alice, ask yourself first if you have that type of Alice. Okay, so I think a lot of people are a bit just confused about how much damage their Alice can really do. Okay, so let's break it down into the different player groups, and once you fit into one of these player groups, then we can recommend you, whether or not RedHood is useful. And again, this is going to be quite a lengthier video so that we can take a deeper analysis and dive into the unit, and hopefully provide some actual advice with regards to the unit. First of all, I think the easiest is actually if you're a waifu lover, right? If you play it for the booba, for the ass, I mean, look at those huge badonkers. And she is fantastic in the event, in the story, and even the backside looks pretty damn good. Okay, so if you're like that, and also I'm one of those waifu lovers too, I was gonna pull RedHood regardless. Okay, 0% chance I'm skipping her, and I even MLB'd for the home screen maximum break. Okay, there's no way that I don't use. I believe in the RedHood that believes in me, and she is a Gurren Lagann fan as well, as hinted in the event, so there's no way that I don't even pull for max limit break. Now the difference is core 7 versus max limit break. So for me, and I know not everyone's gonna even consider that possibility. For me, I stopped at maximum break instead of core 7 because of how she functions at the moment. Okay, so maybe for you that is the difference between one copy versus maximum break. But I think if you're a waifu lover, I think the easiest decision is to just grab one copy. Now, early game players. So I would say early game players are technically divided into two. You have your players that have not started or joining us for the anniversary. If you got RedHood as part of your reroll, I think it's completely fine. It's absolutely fine. The pilgrim I personally would look for if I start a new account right now is either RedHood or Modernia or Scarlet. Any one of these pilgrim RedHood will pilgrim unit will let me have a fantastic time, as they will become my sole very, very strong damage dealers. We got 2 out of the 3, then it's even better, right? So if you're a reroller and you got Scarlet and the Modernia, both pilgrims, then I think you can skip RedHood, because for the early game players, and for those of you that have already started, let's say since the Nier collaboration, and you have, for example, 2B, then there's no need to grab RedHood. Not even a copy, because I'm gonna assume that you are either a small spender or a free-to-play player, right? So if you're just starting out and you're not even in, let's say, chapter 16 yet, you can't even do special interception, then you're going to be stuck. Even after you can do special interception, you're going to be stuck with one team. And one team usually right now is going to be one burst 1, one burst 2, and the one flex, either filling the need to enable our 2 meta units, which is Blanc and Noir, so you need a Noir to go with your Blanc, or the Naga for your Tia, right? So those 3 are kind of interchangeable, those 3 slots, and burst 1 is either Dorothy or Litter. And then you have 2 slots. Usually you only have 2 slots left for burst 3s. And like I've said, it's either going to be Modernia, Scarlet, RedHood, 2 out of the 3, and if you've got 2B because you started from the new collaboration, then it's even less of a space available, because as an early game player, your #1 goal, if you're a waifu lover, you already don't fall into this category, you're the first category, right? But as an early game player, your #1 goal is try to get over the 160 wall. And that's what defines, in my opinion, the early game players, because they'll be stuck at the 160 wall for about, I would say, 2 to 3 months, depending on how fast you can, how lucky and how much you can spend, right? And the 160 wall is broken once you have 5 SSR units that have 3 copies on top of that, so 4 copies total to break the 160 to 200. And once you reach 200, you can enhance your synchro level to go above, right? So that's what I would say is early game. When you anytime before you break the 160 wall, that 2 to 3 months time is essentially the is the early game. And again, like I've said, your goal is to break the wall. So RedHood, you either rerolled, okay, or you're really needing one more damage dealer on your main team, because you'll be stuck using one single team for a very long time. Other than that, I don't recommend you to get one copy unless you're a dolphin or you're spender, right? If you're a spender, you have, of course, more pulls through mission pass and all that stuff. You can grab one copy or exchange it, and you'll be fine in the future banners, okay? But other than that, I'm not really recommended for the early game players. Now, mid game. So in my opinion, mid game players are those that have broken the wall. They're farming nicely, they're starting to get overload gears, but they don't have extra overload gears to go around. Which means, for example, if you look at me, I clear all of the special interceptions, right? I have tons, like more than enough overload gears for me to use, and plenty of rocks because I can do interception 9. So that's mid game. As you're farming your overload gears, as you're farming the rocks, that is, I would say, when you are reaching the mid game, and you truly get over the mid game once. My definition would be once you complete all of the normal story mode. I know some people, they have probably finished all of the story mode, but they still haven't been able to get all of the overload gear or max level their skills on their cores. But it's a fine line between mid to late game, okay? But for these type of players, if you're building towards your Team 2 and Team 3 for your solo raid, for your union raid, RedHood is still a pretty decent pickup. 1 copy. She'll be fine at 1 copy. You can either use her as a burst 3 on your Team 2 or Team 3, or you can use her on burst 1. Yes, that's right, burst 1, she will see some play as well, but I know the investment is quite heavy, but you will not be disappointed with her damage output, okay? Now, if you already have Alice, or if you have all of the damage dealer that's enough to build a, let's say, 2 or 3 team, then you can consider passing RedHood. So basically, you count the number of damage dealer you have. If you have around 5 or 6, then you can skip. And what I mean by that is because we look at the 3 core teams for, let's say, unit raid, right? It's litter plus bunnies plus 2 burst 3s, usually Alice and Modernia or something like that. And then you have your schoolgirls. Right now, it's volume plus schoolgirls plus Snow White plus someone like Maxwell, right? So that's your Team 2. And your Team 3 is currently going to be looking at Dorothy plus Privity, Summer Annis, and someone like Scarlet. But if you don't have Summer Annis because you didn't start around that time, or if you don't have some of these units like Snow White, then RedHood is going to be a great pickup for your Team 2 or Team 3. Right? Not everyone is going to have a completed roster, so if you pick up RedHood, she is going to perform really, really well. So far, with my investment in my testing, and again, this is going to be pretty much mostly just auto, okay? RedHood performs at the same level as around Scarlet, just maybe slightly lower, okay, because my Scarlet is a bit more beefed up, and around the same as Alice as well, okay? I think that you need to understand. If you're not, again, doing frame perfect animation cancels for Alice, RedHood is going to be really, really good for you. Shift Up tried to build a unit that basically wanted to address the sniper rifle macros, because RedHood needs to be just played pretty much semi-auto because you're doing full charge every time instead of a quick scope like you're doing with Alice. So RedHood's damage is actually pretty decent, just not the meta breaking RedHood that we saw on the JP livestream. It's unfortunate, but she will see play. Okay, she will see play even in the mid game. But once you have broken the 160 wall, 1 copy of RedHood again is going to be performing slightly lower in terms of the damage in comparison to other units you may have max limit break for, just because of the bond level, and of course you have to commit to skill books and overload gears. But once you've done that, she is actually not bad, and she doesn't require as much of a heavy investment in comparison. And we always go back to Alice, but remember, Alice is the ceiling of the damage dealer in this game. And Alice, before you get proper overload gear substats, such as I think 2 if not 3 lines of ammo capacity plus charge speed, 1 at least with Maxwell, or 2 lines if you're using her solo, you're not going to be looking at a full potential Alice, because without ammo capacity, Alice actually suffers a lot, and without the charge speed, you can't even quick scope her with properly. So if you don't even understand some of these terms and how to utilize Alice to her full potential, then it doesn't really matter how RedHood's performance is compared to full manual Alice, because you're not going to reach that level. Okay, so a lot of people, they do parrot, you know, Alice and say, oh my god, she sucks compared to Alice or whatever, but like, do you actually have a peak performance Alice at your disposal? If you don't, then RedHood is going to be really, really fantastic for you. Okay, of course, that is the recommendation, and you need to see if 1 copy of RedHood will fit your current playstyle. If you have a slot in 2 or 3, if you don't have a slot, then you can skip. If you do have a slot, that's not bad. And a lot of people went for MLB RedHood, and let me tell you, MLB RedHood will not disappoint you, because even as it currently stands, pre any balance or changes, RedHood, if you can get her to max limit break, or just to overload gear and with high enough skills, right? Once we see bosses, the next ultra boss will reflect this. Once we see enemy bosses with multiple parts that are a bit stacked together, she's gonna deal a ton of damage. It's gonna be insane. She's gonna be top at DPS, maybe even team 1, I would argue, team 1 too. But regardless, once they release a huge damage deal, they always try to make a solo raid or union raid cater towards that unit, so it's a bit biased, so keep that in mind 100%, because we had A2, and I believe the bosses that came out after A2's initial release was really, really favored towards A2, but A2 in the last union raid didn't really see much play. I don't think RedHood's gonna be falling that far But I do believe RedHood's damage will be skewed a bit next time we see her in Union Raid or Solo Raid, which is okay in my opinion. But that's the mid game. I think one copy is still very good to enable versatility. Max limit break or not, depending on your reserve, how many gems and how many golden tickets. I think after RedHood we should be getting a few banners to let us cool down, but of course with all the free pulls you can wait till the last day after your free pulls expire to try your luck at RedHood, or use some tickets just to try to fish for her. Now last but not least, I think late game, end game competitive players, this is actually the easiest. Okay, if you're a super late game competitive player and you have your 3 teams or even your 5 teams done for your solo raid, for your union raid, then you don't really need to consider RedHood, right? Because you've got all of your team majorly invested. RedHood right now does not bring anything new for you, so those are, I think, the most vocal players. And they of course want to see RedHood buff so that she can fit in the current meta, like a tier 0, team 1 or team 2, and see longevity in terms of play, right? But if you already have your 3, 4, 5 teams, it will be a bit more difficult to fit in RedHood unless you max limit break her, invest all the overload gear, and put all the skills. Even then, she might not see play on bosses that don't favor her, okay? But if you are true end 0.1% game, are you really telling me you're not pulling for RedHood? Okay, I think it's quite obvious that the mega whales that are in the top 1, let's say top 5 guild, in the top 10 solo rate, they 100% will pull for RedHood, and I'll explain why. Okay, for these you are basically trying to maximize every single opportunity you can get, and for thumbs of those some of those bosses that have multiple stacking parts, if they don't die, or even cores that can be hit twice, RedHood is going to perform like a beast. She is going to be really good. And even if you don't use her as a burst 3, her burst 1, as much copium as I was saying before, is very viable in a Snow White team comp, because this is 77.55 of the caster's attack for 10 seconds. Okay, if we take a look at Insane Litter right here, Litter's skill at level 10 is 66% for 5 seconds. So this is only 5, and it's 66% for the allies attack. So your supports or units that are lower in attack won't get as much, but this 77 lasts for 10, so double the duration, and this affects all allies, and it's based on RedHood's attack. Okay, so the higher the RedHood's attack, the higher that buff is going to be. So in the super late game, you are actually speeding through a lot of the content. For Union Raid at least, you're finish a fight before you even finish the full duration, and you're actually force quitting in a lot of the runs to just basically exit out, right? So you can do a synchronized attack, or you're speed running, and in speed running, anything that helps with the burst is very crucial, and RedHood's burst, the attack percentage increase, does really help tremendously. And that's why you'll see her in play. And for all of the end game players, like, this is definitely going to see play. Okay, the flexibility in terms of that buff, and how she brings more additional offensive capabilities to the table will definitely see play. Okay, so, but again, these players are quite vocal because we want, I mean, myself included, want the, I think this is, I'll be very honest, I think this is the only time where I've seen, you know, it's okay for the anniversary fan favorite RedHood Pilgrim with a lower drop rate unit to power creep. And I think most people, like 99% of the people, are okay with it. They in fact want to see the power creep coming out from this unit, and hence why I think there's a lot of a backlash, almost in a way, to have RedHood reflect her performance on either live stream or in the in-game lore, right? We just want to see this girl be absolutely insane. But yeah, who knows? Maybe she'll get changed, maybe she won't. But anyhow, this is my take on RedHood, and if she's worth the pulls, the exchange, and all that stuff for the waifu lovers, early game, mid game, and late game, and also end game. Okay, so let me know your thoughts. If you disagree, post them down below. See what advice you would give to people. And other than that, I look forward to potentially an update from the devs. But until then, I am going to enjoy the anniversary. I think it's a fantastic story that they've given us. I thought we'd get a break from depression because it's the weekend. Sorry, it's the anniversary, but it turns out it's not. So yes, I will go cry at Snow White crying. Can't believe they did 3 angles of that shot. Jeez. Anyhow, it's TimaeuSS here, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye now.